This podcast may contain graphic and/or explicit content that may not be suitable for some listeners, especially kids like me. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Real Life Podcast, brought to you by the Thin Blue Line for Women. In this podcast, we open up and talk about real life issues as they relate to law enforcement. It's raw, it's real, and it's about time. I'm Tamara, your host. Thanks for joining me. I've got some shout outs for some people, very special people from Facebook and Twitter. I'm just going to name off your names here. H. Clary, Nick and Mike with Roll Call Room, Ann Wettig, Allison, Alma with the yellow flower in her hair, Cammie, I Have Your Six, Johnny Socks, Detective Blue Line and Baby Yoda, Susan Nealon, Susan in Seattle, Lee Roberts, got Jill Bemmy from Canada, Benjamin Tyler Smith, Becky Howell, Becky Rice, the 9 p.m. Routine, Resting Mom Face Podcast, sorry about that, Janet Roberts, First Responder PTSD Advocate, and I think that's all my shout outs this week. I do want to say something really quick about supporting this podcast. If you'd like to monetarily support it, you can do so by clicking on the little box that has the $ and the word support, and it's just 99 cents a month. There are other options, but really if I just get a few people for 99 cents a month, then that would help pay for the program that I have to use to have my guests on. It's not very expensive at all, but over time it's going to add up, and just 99 cents does help when multiple people are helping. So when you're listening to this podcast from the anchor link that I always post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, it will have a little box with a $ and the word support, so you can support that way, and I really appreciate it. I've got 4 supporters right now to thank. I'm not going to say your last names, but I've got Ron, Kelly, Ann, and Katie, and I sincerely thank all 4 of you for supporting me. It's much appreciated. Hello, everyone. I have a really special guest with me today. A lot of you know her from Twitter. It's Sergeant Manderzzz. Hi, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm so happy to have you on today. And I met you on Twitter. And the reason why I follow you is because you're hilarious. Okay, so a lot of people follow you because you're hilarious. And you're a great woman, and you're a police woman, so you rock.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
But I love your Twitter posts because a lot of times you have your kids in them, and you do jokes, and you do those cute little those filters, you know.
Oh yeah, the Snapchat filter joke.
Yes,
yeah.
And so that attracted me to your page. Okay, I'm just going to admit that in the first place. So that attracted me to your page, and I share some of your stuff, and so I just want to have an actual real interview and a conversation with you because you're a fellow woman in policing, and feel like I have a kinship with you already. So let's go through this conversation and see how far we get without laughing.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know who you are, I'm sure they're going to find you on Twitter after this, but give the listeners a little background about who you are, so we know who you are.
So I'm just a normal person. I'm been in law enforcement. This May will be 16 years. I'm a mom. I've got 2 kids, a little boy who's 10, a daughter who's 4, and my husband who is also in law enforcement. We've been together. Next week will be 12 years. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. So wait, your boy's 10 and your girl's how old?
4.
Oh, and she's the one in your videos. It's so cute.
My son's actually the one in the videos.
Oh, it's your son?
Yes,
oh,
he's
always in the background.
He is. And the best part about those videos is he doesn't tell me the jokes ahead of time. He just picks them and tells them to me. So like, that's my reaction to his joke when he does it.
I love it. So do you work for a police department or a sheriff's department?
So I work for a municipal police department.
Okay. And you said you've been there 16 years.
Yeah, May will be 16 years.
And what is your rank in your primary job so the listeners will know?
So I'm a patrol sergeant, and in our agency that consists of basically overseeing patrol officers, just making sure that they're handling calls the right way, assisting them, kind of guidance, a lot of, reviewing reports, administrative tasks. The shift I work is an afternoon shift. A lot of people consider it like a swing shift. So, it's myself and typically another supervisor on our days, and about 15 officers responding to calls for service. So we help where we can, but mainly our job is to oversee what everyone's doing and make sure they're not having any problems.
Right. And how long have you been a sergeant?
About 3.5 years.
Okay. And your husband is a police officer also, right?
He is, yes.
Okay. So how do you guys handle all your shift work, and you have 2 kids? How does that work?
Well, it's not been easy. When I started, and when we started actually dating, we worked a similar shift. He was a canine handler for a long time, so he worked midnight shift. I worked midnight shift as a result, and not until I was pregnant with my son and had to come off midnight shift did we ever start working separate shifts. And then from that point on, we hadn't worked the same shift in probably 10 years.
Wow.
So he went to day shift after he retired his second canine, and I ended up going back to midnight shift when I got promoted. Stayed on midnight shift for some time, and then went to community services, which was during the day. And we both had Saturday, Sunday off and worked daytime hours. And that was the first time we'd ever worked together, like I said, in 10 years before that. So,
wow. Maybe that's why your marriage is still going, because you didn't work together.
Probably, because I'll tell you what, that was a rough coming back. Like, hey, I have to see you all the time now. What is going on here? But no, we fixed that real quick. And he ended up he wanted to become a school resource officer. And at the time when I was in community services, that was part of the unit that I oversaw. So I had to leave that unit so he could go into it. And I left the unit and went back to afternoon shift, and I'm loving it. So
wow, good.
Yeah.
So did you always want to be a police officer since you were a little girl, or what were your dreams when you were growing up?
I don't even know. I don't know. Honestly, I wanted to work at SeaWorld with animals. Like, I wanted to be a animal trainer, wanted to swim with dolphins, do all that stuff. I'm from Florida, born and raised here, not in the county I'm living in, but I've always loved the water. I've loved animals. I worked at a vet's office before I went to law enforcement. No, I had no aspirations to be a police officer whatsoever.
So how did you get here?
So, funny story. Actually, at the time, a friend of mine wanted to be a corrections deputy. Bless her heart. I'm not sure why. I have the utmost respect for corrections personnel, but that is a tough job. I mean, people want to talk about policing being a tough job, but that is by far, in my opinion, the toughest job. So she had to go through the physical agilities test, and she didn't want to go through it by herself. So she said, hey, would you mind coming with me? I said, sure, why not? I'm not doing anything. So I went, and one of the training deputies that was there said, hey, why don't you go through this also? I said, yeah, why not?
Oh my goodness.
What have I got to lose? He goes, wow, you did really good. He goes, you should think about this. I'm like, oh, I don't want to work in the jail. He's like, oh, well, you could do law enforcement. Like, you don't have to work in a jail. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Okay. So I quit college and went to the police academy.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
No. It seemed like a natural.
Wow.
Right? Is that not how you're supposed to do that?
You can do whatever you want, girl.
But that's what I did.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have a similar story. Similar, not that crazy. I didn't quit college, but I wasn't in college yet. So So my story of how I got in it was I was in the Air Force for 4 years as a law enforcement, but which is completely different than the real world. Completely different. Okay. Um, and when I got out, I thought, now what do I do? I don't want to go to college. I didn't have a degree. Like, what do I do now? Like, that's all I knew. And my brother was already a deputy. So he said, just come out and take the test and see what happens. He did the same thing, broke me in. And here I am 20 years later. But I'm happy I did it because I was able to retire at age 46. I mean, that's who does that, you know? We have really good
I know.
good perks, right? So back to you. Um, did you personally, in your opinion, find it difficult being a woman when you first got on the department 16 years ago?
No, I mean, I don't think I did. I don't know that I've struggled with some of the things I've heard or seen other people struggle with. I never really felt different from anybody else.
That's good.
I'm very fortunate. The agency I work for, of the 150 some officers we have, a heavy percentage of us are female. I can recall a midnight shift squad where we're broken up into 3 zones at the time, and one of those zones, 5 of the 7 officers working that zone were all female. I mean,
do you know how refreshing that is to hear from you? I just had an interview with Donna Brown, who was on the department for 26 years, I believe she said. And way back when, in 1979, when it was hard being a woman, it was completely different. I think she was like the 3rd woman on her department. I mean, I can't even imagine that, right?
Yeah, I know.
So different. So before you were promoted and after you were promoted, is it different being a woman as a sergeant in your department?
I mean, again, I feel extremely fortunate that we don't deal with some of those kind of feelings like that. I just never have. I took the slow and steady pace wins the race kind of route to what I did. I spent 5 or 6 years on patrol before I became a field training officer. I did that for 4 years. I went into investigations and was a detective for another 4 or so years after that. My partner as a detective for most of those years was another female who I felt like I followed her path kind of almost to the T until, she's still a detective and she's getting ready to retire. And I decided to go for the promotion stuff. I feel like I've had an opportunity to do a lot of things, and I don't think being a female has either enabled or hindered that at all.
So either that's your department, kudos to your department, or maybe our world is getting better.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
But and I'm of the opinion, I think a lot of it's perspective. And if you want to focus on, reasoning that through your mind that way, then so be it. If someone wants to come and tell me, oh, you got promoted because you're female and they need more females, okay, great. But I'm still doing the job, and I'm still here.
Right.
So regardless of how it happened.
Yeah. So you were a detective for 4 years. What were you a detective in?
So when I got into investigative services, I was a burglary detective, which was phenomenally not exciting. And then I went into, and then I had an opportunity to move within about 6 months into economic crimes, which was phenomenally not as exciting, but way more interesting and way more challenging.
Okay. So you didn't have to be a homicide sergeant or a homicide detective or a child abuse detective. Nothing grueling like that.
No, thankfully. I mean, and the size of our investigative services division is to the point where if we had a significant crime, we would all kind of pitch in. There were days where our homicide detectives were just, hammered with cases, and they'd ask us to go out on things. And I'd always make the joke like, well, is there a bad check in here somewhere? I don't know what I'm looking for. So, but no, we worked really well as a team. So
that's really good.
It was a good learning experience. Yeah.
Now I have a weird question. Okay, so you were pregnant, obviously,
Oh yeah.
Twice
Yeah.
during your career. How was the agency? And this is not, a reflection on your agency at all. No, we're not going to badmouth. We're not going to talk negative at all. This is just your opinion on, was it easy or was it hard while you were pregnant being employed? Like, what was it like? Were you given time, to pump on duty? Because that's a big thing. Some departments frown on that, and even though it's wrong, you don't have time to do that. They don't give you a safe space to do that. I mean, how was that with you?
So for me, it was fine. When I found out I was pregnant, I was given the option, stay as long as you want, or, we don't have light duty positions on our midnight shift schedule. We just don't. So that was the only kind of thing where they said, you're going to have to move to a different shift. So I stayed for a little while, and to the dismay of my zone partners, for some reason, every call we went on for like the 3 or 4 weeks that I decided to tough it out and try to stay in uniform, we were fighting someone, and they're like, hey, you got to go because this is really your fault. They didn't want me to touch anybody. They're like, no, we'll handle it. And I'm like, guys, I'm not broken. I'm fine. They're like, no. So I was like, well, I'll save them the drama and come off the shift. And but no, the agency was fine. It was, I came back after having my son after 6 weeks, and it was really on me. It was really, what are you comfortable doing in terms of pumping and all those things? And that whole, pumping adventure wasn't for me. And I ended up having to come back off the road for about a week. And then I gave up the whole pumping thing, and my child ended up being formula fed, but it was for other reasons. But no, even with my daughter, I was fortunate in investigations. I was pregnant with my daughter, and so I worked literally the day before I had her. I worked, cases.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a case where a CNA was pregnant too, and she
now
was
for the listeners, what's a CNA?
Oh, a certified nursing assistant.
Okay.
So she was a certified nursing assistant at one of our assisted living facilities, and she was stealing from patients, stealing their credit cards and using them and doing all these things. And I brought her in for an interview, and the guys in the bay were like, are you going to arrest this lady? She's 8 months pregnant. I'm like, I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm not pitying her, first off. So she ended up going, and I thought, heck no, if we wait till after she has this baby, then we're going to have to find someone to care for the baby and do all this other stuff. No, she can go to the jail pregnant just fine. If I got to sit here, she's got to sit here.
Okay, let's get serious for a little bit.
Okay.
What's the worst call or scene that you've ever responded to or worked?
That's always the toughest question, because they all have their different facets of difficulty. I know when I was in training in the first couple years of my career on patrol, I swear every death call I went to was a child. And I thought, does anyone else in this city die besides babies? Because this is too much. Mm-hmm. There was one case in 2008 where a 4-year-old had been abused significantly and died as a result of that abuse. And it was just heartbreaking, because the child was in the care of other family members, and the mother had done that thinking it was the best option for her child. And especially being a mother now and knowing that you do anything in this world for your children, to know that that's the guilt that she probably carries with her to this day is just beyond me. So that calls like that were always difficult. And I had plenty of them to start with.
Mm-hmm. What is your opinion about the number of law enforcement suicides that's going on right now?
It's a shame. And you talk about difficult calls, and I didn't have to go to it, but I can recall vividly back in 2006, a zone partner of mine had been on administrative leave, and we didn't know why he was. He was on administrative duty, actually. And I was working an overtime detail because we worked midnight shifts. We were on a traffic detail. And he shot himself with his duty shotgun, and he lived in our city. And I had friends that had to respond to that. And I had to go and cover the road while they were responding to that. And I'm like, that's my zone partner. And it's just my heart broke because we didn't know, what we could have done differently. We'll never know if we could have ever done anything differently. And so it's terrible that they're going through something that's so painful that they can't see the positives that lie ahead of them. It's and this is probably cliched, but it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Right. But they don't see it.
No, they don't. And I had a good friend from my academy commit suicide last year. And then just recently, in our county, we had a deputy commit suicide who I had actually met at a training before. He was a fantastic guy. I mean, super nice, super funny. We don't know the struggles that people are dealing with in their lives and their tolerance for what their pain is. And,
right.
It breaks my heart that there's so many of us who are hurting so badly that we don't see that there's something to look forward to in life.
I like the phrase you just said, their tolerance of pain, because everyone does have their own level.
Absolutely.
Dependent upon what they're going through, dependent upon the environment they grew up in, dependent
what
upon
they've gone through, everything.
Everything is,
and I think that's what makes it so difficult is there's not just a simple fix. It's not just saying, oh, well, you need counseling or you need this or you need that. I've done trainings. I was very fortunate in my career to do put on a lot of trainings for people in our agency. And I did all our mental health training for a long time for recruits and officers. I've done tactical mindfulness training. And to me, it's about resiliency and being able to come back and realize that you're having normal feelings to abnormal things and not the other way around. You're not the abnormal person in this. Mm-hmm. You're not the abnormal experience. You're the normal part of it. Mm-hmm. What you're going through is the abnormal part of it.
I love that you said that too.
And that's difficult for a lot of people to really grasp because, whatever social constructions they've made for themselves about, how they should respond or how they should feel or what they should be doing. That's always what I try to impart on people is, you're the one living your life. You're the one experiencing these things. You got to let the rest of it go.
Uh-huh. Now, but do you think as an officer, like I'm talking about you, do you feel you have a safe place to turn if you were to have an emotional crisis? I think a lot of people, they know all the phone numbers that are out there, the suicide hotlines, Safe Call Now. I mean, they know that they're out there, okay? But are they confident enough in those systems to be able to dial that number and know that they are anonymous, know that they're not going to, be told on, know that they're not going to have someone knock at their door and bring them to a mental hospital? How confident are we, and are you personally, that you have a safe place to really go to?
So personally, I feel like I would have a safe place. Now, I think where the issue comes in is when all is said and done, coming back to your work environment, knowing that your agency or your peers are not going to look at you differently or as if there's something wrong with you. And having a structure of support that is conducive to that, having employee assistance programs not be punishment based or punishment related. We're not, we're going to send you for fitness for duty because we don't think you can do the job. And that's a cultural perspective. I met a guy that works in the Northeast, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus and name him or anything, but he works for an agency and he has done a phenomenal job in his agency and the surrounding areas of setting up basically this network of care for officers. And knowing, and he has a direct line to the chief of police and says, this officer needs help. This officer doesn't need to be punished. And they're able to facilitate that type of care in an environment that they've successfully intervened in suicides. So,
Wow.
having an agency like that, and that takes time, and that takes resource establishment. And, I hope that that's the way we're trending. And I know with the awareness that we're bringing to not just post-traumatic stress disorder, but cumulative stress disorders, that we're going to see that those tides turn. I can only hope. Our firefighters are the best at this, and you will never hear me say that about anything firefighters do ever again. I promise you. Gosh, those firefighters! But no, they will. So when our firefighters go out on a fire scene, which is a big deal because we don't have a lot of fires, and man, do they get excited about it. They go out on this real fire, and they have these areas where, and I can't remember what they're called now, but basically like a relaxation area with like chairs and footstools and Gatorade, and like they just,
chill.
Like they're the defense coming off the football game from the Super Bowl. They've got fans and towels, and it's like the recuperation area. And I'm like, y'all are too much. But because they understand, physical stressors turn into mental stressors, turn into physical stressors, and here you are in the cycle. So they're phenomenal at that aspect of it. And hopefully one day, I'm not saying I need a chair and a fan with a spray bottle on it or anything, but hopefully one day we can start to actually recognize where we can improve on allowing people to decompress productively.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And in my department, we got 6 EAP sessions, but what do you do after the 6? Sometimes it's going to take more than 6, and then just little things like that. I think about, it's kind of a catch-22, the next thing I'm going to say. So we talk about our scenes. We're supposed to talk about scenes and calls so we can get it out, right? So it's not building up.
Right.
But we don't want to burden our spouse and our partner. We don't want to talk to our kids, of course. Some of our non-cop friends don't understand. So some people are left with nobody to talk to.
Oh, absolutely. I'm incredibly fortunate that I have a spouse who's in law enforcement. We don't do a whole lot of shop talk at home. If there's something that needs to be brought up or that someone wants to mention or just vent about, we do our best to vent it and move on. But I can imagine that in my non-law enforcement family, we don't really talk about a whole lot of stuff like that. Like you said, you don't want to burden them. There's agencies around here who do family academies for law enforcement family members. There's an agency that, when their cadets graduate, their family gets, I think it's Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement or a book like that. So, little things like that to make them feel engaged because, as a spouse, as a family member, you want to be there, you want to help. But at the same token, as the law enforcement officer, you don't want to burden that family member. You don't want to burden them with, some of the struggles. And so, we always try to talk about, how to engage in productive means of decompression, that aren't going to be harmful, whether to you or someone else.
Right, exactly. Okay, we're going to take just a quick break, and we're going to come right back and talk more with Sergeant Manderzzz.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Are you looking for Thin Blue Line gear? It's available on our website at thinbluelineforwomen.com. That's Thin Blue Line, the number 4, women.com. Show your support for law enforcement and get your Thin Blue Line gear today. Just click on shop at thinbluelineforwomen.com. Have you ever wondered what being a part of CSI is really like? If so, here's your chance to experience it. In my book, titled Through My Eyes, CSI Memoirs That Haunt the Soul. Through My Eyes contains 11 personal accounts of the most grueling and heartbreaking crime scenes I worked during my 15 years in the Crime Scene Investigations Unit. While reading my book, you'll walk inside the crime scene tape with me. You'll catch a glimpse of what I saw, touched, smelled, and even tasted during an average workday. I'll take you on a difficult journey of memories, uncovering layers of emotional trauma left behind. Dare to join me? Through My Eyes is available now on Amazon.
And we are back. Okay, Sarge, tell me your funniest story about work.
My funniest story about work. Oh man, I was just telling. Well, I'm not going to tell you funny things I did, but no. So we were just talking about this. So, obviously people not moving over and hitting police officers while they're on traffic stops, stuff like that is ridiculous, right? So we'll go through these waves where someone will pull a traffic stop and then an officer will go behind him and just wait for people not to move over. And you're kind of like leapfrogging doing these traffic stops, right? So we were doing this one night and a super good buddy of mine, he was coming to back me on a traffic stop. And as I'm walking up to the window, I can see through the mirror, I've got my wall of light going, good approach, super tactical. And I see this girl and she pulls her shirt, like unbuttons her shirt, pulls it down, hikes her skirt up. I'm like, what? It's not going to go real well for her, is it? So I get to the window and she like rolls her eyes. She's like, oh, I'm going to get a ticket, right? I'm like, well, hang on. She rebuttons her shirt. She's like, you are not the police officer I was expecting. Okay, clearly not.
Oh my, good Lord.
So as that's going on, an ambulance pulls up and he goes, hey, there's this guy. He's, just blasted through the intersection back there. He's all over the road. Someone's got to stop him, right? So I radio to the officer that was coming to back me up to pull someone over. And he finds the truck and off he goes. And I tell this young lady, like, hey, let's button her up and slow down a little bit, whatever her stop was for. So go to back him up on this stop. The guy is hammered, right? So he does this DUI and the guy's all upset because I don't know if his girlfriend just left him or his girlfriend just kicked him out or something, but he's got all his laundry in the front of his pickup truck. So the officer is trying to find something that the guy said he had in his truck. So he finds it. I think there were pills or a scale or something along those lines. And he comes back out and he does this whole DUI investigation. And when I started, we didn't have computers in our cars and stuff like that. So we handwrote reports. We, had to get grids and crosses, the whole 9 yards. The only thing we ever videoed were DUIs. Most people didn't have video systems in their cars. So he had one. So we're videoing this DUI and he gets all done with it, goes to arrest the guy. And I notice he has a pair of panties hanging on his taser because he's just been in this guy's car. So the whole DUI video, he's got underpants on his taser.
Ew.
And of course, because I'm, super with it, I just start like hyperventilating dramatically and I can't stop laughing. And I'm of no good to nothing. Good thing this guy was super sad and compliant, I guess, because I was about to pass out and I was laughing and laughing. So the whole end of the video is me and I'm like shaking, like I can't tell him because I just can't speak. The words aren't coming out of my mouth that there's a pair of panties hanging off your taser. And he was so mad at me. And then we went and bought underwear from the Walmart and put them all over the cruiser. And so then one more, I know, that was me. That was exactly my thing, right? So then we had another one. Oh, they're both taser incidents, really. We had this guy that was, bless his heart, was trying to throw himself into traffic. He was going through a mental crisis. And so the officer finally catches up with him. And so this guy had tried to get someone apparently to run him over. And a child protective investigator was heading into her shift for work. This is in the middle of the night. And she stops for him on the highway. And he gets mad that she stops and doesn't run him over. Go figure. And he smashes his fist through the windshield of her car. Scares the bejesus out of her, right? So we're trying to find this guy. Like, clearly something's up with him. He needs help. We need to stop him. So I'm running up and down the highway trying to find this guy. Because I'm like, he couldn't have gotten far real fast. One of the other officers takes the main thoroughfare, back and forth. And he spots him. And he starts to get in a physical confrontation with the guy. So I start hauling tail over there. Everyone's, running lights and sirens to him. I blow the engine out in my cruiser, right?
Oh.
That was a plus. And then all of a sudden you hear him come on the radio. And I guess what he had done is he had attempted to deploy the taser. The guy pulls the barbs from him. And as the taser is still cycling for its 5-second cycle, he pulls the taser back and he hits himself in the face. So he ends up saying over the radio, "I've just tasered myself in the face."
Oh, no.
And I'm trying to get my poor Crown Vicks limping to the scene.
No.
Anyways, we end up, that was bizarre. That guy threw himself through a plate glass window into a business to avoid us. And we talked him out of that. And that was something. But yeah, he tasered himself in the face. So we still have that recording.
Oh, ow.
Radio traffic.
Oh, my God.
Why are you telling us that you tasered yourself in the face?
Because he needed help.
Apparently. But no, he was fine. And the guy was fine. And so.
That poor guy. I like the panties story. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine if he would have had to pull his taser out and the panties are hanging from the taser and he's like, wait, what's going on?
And I'm on the ground rolling around laughing because I was just completely.
Oh, my gosh. So you've been on 16 years. When do you plan on retiring?
Oof, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably when they make me retire. I mean, my children are still small. I'll be 43 when I can retire. We have 23 and out. We can stay and up to a certain amount of time. I think I could do 35 years before they made me leave. That's our
do you
cap.
Want to?
I don't know. It just depends. I used to think like I was gonna, keep climbing and doing all these other things, but I love what I do right now. It's a tremendous amount of fun. I've always thought that teaching people and guiding them and instructing them and working through problems with them, that's how I learn things. So, coming back to patrol you're always learning something because you're helping other people learn through the job. Right, and so I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, so do you see yourself as a cop or do you see yourself as a mom? And how do you
definitely a mom.
Mom first?
Mom, without a doubt, yeah.
Okay. That's a good one. So how do you balance your home life with work? And I think we talked about that a little bit in the beginning, but I mean, you have a husband who's also a cop. Do you have to have help? Do you have to have a nanny? Do you have to have a maid? How do you balance all this?
I would be so much better if I had all those things, probably. Good Lord. I just don't do things.
Well, let me just tell the listeners. Let me tell the listeners that we are both right now on this podcast in our pajamas.
Can confirm.
Because we are moms first, right?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the days revolve around them for sure. It's survival of the fittest. It just really is. You do what absolutely has to be done, like right this minute. I mean, there's no time for anything else. And like I said, I left college at 20 and went to the police academy. And so I'm back to working on my bachelor's degree. So now I've got this semester and next semester, and then I'm done finally after 16 years. So.
And what is your major?
It will be in criminology.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it will be in criminology. So I wasn't going to rewrite the wheel there.
Oh yeah, no. So your kids are 10 and 4. Mm-hmm. Do you want them to go in law enforcement when they grow up?
I want them to do what makes them happy, but if we could sway them away from it, I wouldn't be opposed to that, just because they have strengths in other areas. Although my daughter's really pushy, so she might do just fine. They're so young. I don't know if that's what they wanted to do. Then great. My son would probably benefit from it tremendously. He needs structure beyond all else. So it would probably be a good thing. And that's perks of law enforcement is, you don't have to find your own stuff to wear every day. Someone tells you what to wear. So
right.
Someone tells you where to go. Someone tells you what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and they pay you for it. It's amazing.
I know. That's you have a good attitude about it.
I think he would, I want him to be safe, mom wise. But I would totally support him if that's what he wanted to do. And like I said, it'd probably do him some good to have a little structure in his life.
Okay, let's talk about you. Not as a cop, but you, like who you are. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
What's your favorite movie genre?
I love I just love to laugh. So I love comedies.
I knew it. I
Yeah.
that about you. I knew it.
Sure.
Do you have a favorite movie? If you have a lot,
one. Yeah, so there's not just one. There's some movies that I will watch over and over again. I love Steve Carell, so Crazy Stupid Love is hysterical to me because it's such real life. This is 40 is another one that is so funny. I love all like, Super Troopers and 40-Year-Old Virgin and, all the silly, funny stuff where I just like quick wit. That's what really engages me in a movie is quick wit. But I love like The Town. I would watch that movie 17 times over. It's a bank robbery movie, but their accents, I love it. So
I've never heard of that movie, and I'm looking for another movie. I know.
With Ben Affleck and I can't remember his other name.
Okay, I'm writing it down right now because I'm looking for something to watch. Okay,
and they're like Ben Affleck, Boston accents are amazing. I'm a big accent person, so
apparently so.
I enjoy it. But yeah, that's a good one.
So do you watch crime shows on television?
No, heavens to Betsy, no. Nope.
Why not?
Why not? I can't get into it. My husband watches them every once in a while. He goes through phases. And I'm like, how can you watch this? Like, we do this. I mean, we don't, it's not like Law and Order Special Victims Unit. But it's just too much for me.
Okay.
And it's not about, and like I said, I've tweeted before, I love that people love Live PD. It's just not for me. I can't watch it. Not because I would judge people. Everyone does things differently. Everyone's agencies are different. Policies are different. Practices are different. The type of people you deal with are different. So to say, I'd do that instead of that is kind of a cop out. But it just doesn't intrigue me because I have to
you do it every day. You work it.
Oh yeah.
Why do you want to go home and work it again?
I know.
Yeah. You want to tell jokes with your 10-year-old boy and videotape them.
And right now, like, my TV is taken over by those tiny hijackers that are my children. So it's like Lego movie this and Disney movie this. And so, yeah, I don't watch a lot of TV in my free time because I don't have a lot of free time. But yeah, a lot of it's really run by them. And then I'm just too exhausted to care what's on TV when it's all said and done. So.
Okay, Sarge, leave us with one thing that you want everyone to know about law enforcement.
That we're people just like you. We just have to tell you all what to do. So don't make it so hard on us. Don't make us say it twice, I guess. It's law enforcement is difficult because you're everyone's friend and you're everyone's enemy.
There's like no in between, right?
No.
You're either a good friend or you're an enemy. That's true.
You really are. You're either everyone's savior or they want you to burn in hell. It just, like I said, there's no in between. There's no people who are like, yeah, I'm okay with the cops. No, they either love the police or they hate the police. And it's a difficult job. And I don't know that it's getting any more difficult than it was. I think we're just seeing more of what law enforcement officers go through. I think the important thing is to understand balance and to recognize that, people we deal with, that may be their only emergency they've ever had to deal with.
Right.
It could be our 400th emergency of that type that we've had to deal with. So treat people with respect and grace, and usually you get a little bit of that in return at some point. So,
okay, and one final thing: can you leave us? This is I don't want to get sad or cry, but
don't
it's supposed to be a funny episode. What are some words of wisdom you can give to officers right now who are going through a crisis or going through hard times? What's one thing you can say to that officer right now, from one officer to another?
That there's going to be a tomorrow, and you have to let tomorrow come. You have to. No one can tell you it's going to be better, but how are you going to know?
Right.
I would say that. Give
And with
tomorrow
that,
a chance. Yeah.
yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Sarge, you're awesome. You're an amazing mom. You're an amazing police officer. If you guys have not followed her on Twitter, you have to. It's Sergeant Manderzzz
Lots
with
of
a million Z's after it. So Sergeant
Yeah.
Manderzzz, yes, yeah. You won't be let down. She makes you laugh every single day,
Oh,
right?
man. Gosh, sometimes.
Do you make your
Laugh,
husband laugh?
cry.
Does your husband laugh at your jokes?
He laughs at me. He doesn't laugh
I-
at my jokes. There's a big difference.
okay. Well, I super appreciate having you on today. You're wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making us laugh, and we'll go to your page for all the laughter that we need. So thank you
Thank,
so much.
thank you so much. It was
You're
an honor.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Join me next week as I talk with a 911 dispatcher. She opens up and talks about stress, anxiety, and depression. I'll see you next week.